Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Nuance Needed podcast. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Sam.
And we are back today with a little FAQ episode, kind of following up the boundaries episode that we did. Like, it was one of our first episodes, like in October.
I think, honestly, we're probably due for like a whole other episode on boundaries at this point. But
Like, should we just do one once a quarter?
Yeah. What do you guys think? Do you need a
Let
constant,
us know.
Yeah, a reminder about boundaries all the time? Yeah, so we're probably due for like a refresh on the episode as a whole. But we figured since we're kind of doing more of these Q&A episodes, we would kind of sum up a lot of the questions that Amanda and I both receive individually surrounding boundaries and how to deal with them and how to deal with when they're not listened to, I think is the big piece.
Yeah. So in the original episode we talked a lot about how people kind of weaponize their boundaries. And one thing that really bothers me is the whole like, no is a complete sentence.
Ugh.
And I know that's like probably a spicy thing to say. And obviously there are cases where it absolutely is. Like, no is a complete sentence is obviously very, very important when we're talking about someone like crossing your sexual boundaries or crossing your physical boundaries, or you feel unsafe in any capacity. But it feels like it's been weaponized a little bit in terms of then I don't have to talk to you about anything I don't want to do.
Right. I think put succinctly, it's not a broad stroke approach for a boundary.
Yeah.
Because I also think like sometimes there are actually quite a few settings where that would be very awkward for everybody to just be like, no. Oh, okay. Sounds good. You know, like an example that I think of that I think these situations that I've helped some of my clients navigate is if we're talking about like social events, right? Like trying to respect the boundaries that you have with like your energy or your time or what you can and cannot do, right? I think it's a little awkward if someone says to you like, hey, do you want to like do something on Friday? And you're like, no.
Period.
I mean, I think like that's not fair.
Totally.
Right. I think especially if it's in a relationship that like you want to have maintained, that's not the right approach. And I think I have tried to come at boundaries as like, because really so much of what we do in therapy is like teaching people how to apply these skills, right? And so with boundaries, I try to remind people like not every boundary has to be a direct, specific conversation. There's ways to explain that you have a boundary without turning it into like a thing, because so many people assume that it has to be this like aggressive, direct,
or like that, right? Like the HR language, therapy, conversation.
It has to feel professional, if you will, and it doesn't. And I think you could, if we use like the social interaction example, you could say, "Oh God, I am so exhausted. I think I'm going to pass. What about next weekend?" Right?
Yeah.
Like you said no. And that isn't.
Yeah, that's not even a boundary, really. You're just kind of saying no.
Right. But you're also respecting the fact that you have a boundary of you're not going to keep like pushing yourself to do things when you're feeling fatigued or overwhelmed or tired. Right. So it's like you're expressing what it is that you need and holding this boundary.
Yeah.
But you're not trying to turn it into a problem. Like, it doesn't have to be this assertive, like, no, I will not be going out for social events because I am tired. Like, it doesn't have to be that.
I think also, Sam, in terms of no as a complete sentence and when it applies and when it doesn't, I kind of feel like as a general thought, the closer you are in a relationship with someone, right, back to kind of what do we owe each other, like the more explanation you kind of owe the person.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like if they're pushing you, right, you have to tell them more necessarily. Like I think I think the idea of no as a complete sentence also can get misconstrued when it's like you don't also need to come up with more and more reasons. Like that's a thing that I talk to people about a lot is, right, if you say, no, I can't go to the party, you don't have to, if someone says like, why, or pushes you, right, you don't have to keep coming up with more and more reasons and explanations. That's where you can say the same thing over and over again. And I think that's important. But yeah, I think that the closer you are in a relationship with them, the more negotiation there's going to be, the more questions. And I like that you kind of gave an example where you compromised, because one thing that frustrates me is when people say boundaries should never have, right, a question attached to them, or boundaries never can be negotiated. And I actually completely disagree and think
violently disagree.
A lot of boundaries have to be negotiated. Even if you think about a physical boundary of like, right, I share a home with someone.
Yeah.
I can't just be like, well, my boundary is that the entire house goes to sleep at 8 p.m. When you live with other people, you can't say that.
No. Well, and this is where the nuance is, because it's not, you can't live your life that rigidly.
Yeah.
People that have these very, very defined, rigid boundaries, right? They are more often the ones that then express like, well, why do I feel so distant from people?
Yeah.
Why do I feel like I don't have any friends? Why do I feel like I don't have any relationships? And it's like, well, you're not allowing things to be porous based on the situation.
Yes.
And I think I stress all the time that boundaries are allowed to be porous. That's the whole point of them. To have a boundary be porous does not mean you are betraying yourself, right? It is the absence of boundaries that leads to betrayal.
Yes.
You establish, or like self-sabotage, self-betrayal, right? Like you deciding that your boundaries are fluid allows you to know, you start by identifying like, what is the kind of like the base boundary I want to have? Okay, great. How is that different from person to person and situation to situation? How do I allow myself that flexibility in my own life to say that, well, because I might need this in this situation, I actually don't need it in that one.
Yeah.
And I think that's unfair, because when people put that pressure on, like, it has to be the same all the time.
Yeah.
Because you then assume that to change it means that you're not good at holding boundaries. And I actually think it's the reverse.
Yeah.
I think if you're able to practice fluidity, that is much more of a strength than saying like, I just say no.
Yes.
All the time.
Yeah. I mean, even if we just talk about flexibility, right?
Yeah.
They've done studies that one of the best things that predicts good mental health is how flexible you're able to be, like psychological flexibility, whether you can see things from other people's perspectives, whether you can adapt, whether you can change, whether when something happens and you are presented with new information, you can think about something differently. And I think that is one of like the saddest things about the internet and our culture these days is we are moving away towards that being a positive thing. And it almost sometimes on the internet feels like if you are flexible or you're able to see things from other sides, you are a coward or
you don't have values.
Yeah. Yeah. When like values are deeper than your just thoughts, and the values are the things that guide you, but you can also have different thoughts about things and change.
I think what trips people up more than anything is when we are talking about, like, even if we were to like zoom out at like the 30,000 foot view, when we are talking about boundaries, at the end of the day, what we are talking about is you having confidence in yourself.
Yes.
And you having like a sense of grounded understanding in who you are and what you need. And I think what makes boundaries so difficult for so many people is they don't have a sense of that. So they just see stuff on social media that's like, say no. And they're like, yeah, no. Like, and then they say no in all these situations, and then it backfires. And they're like, wait, like, why isn't this working? I'm doing that. And it's like, right, well, you sprinted before you even started to like roll over and do tummy time, like you put all of this pressure on yourself to be like, well, because I've been so bad at holding boundaries, I have to hold everything at once.
The overcorrect.
But you didn't do any of the internal work to change, like, well, wait a minute. Why am I even concerned that I haven't been holding these boundaries? Like, what is it that I feel is I'm allowing myself to experience betrayal with.
Mm-hmm.
Because also somebody asking something of you is not like you immediately being like taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And I've had to sort through that, I think, like on a personal level with my family and my brother.
Yeah.
I had to go through, my brother who is disabled, has special needs. Someone yelled at me for saying he has special needs. I don't care because that's what he has. But he, there's all this caregiving that has to happen, right?
Yeah.
And I was really resentful for a really long time about having to do that. And in my own work, what I realized was like, no, like I'm actually okay helping. But I can, and this is where it gets like even more in the weeds, which is like, I could hold space for both at the same time. I could be frustrated that we were in this position as a family where we needed to do this.
Yeah.
Right. And that our family dynamic was as such. And I could also be okay with helping him because he's my brother and I care about him and I want to support him.
Yeah.
And I think in families, that is a dynamic that often gets overlooked. Yes. There's kind of a binary that, well, if I do this, I have to feel this way about it. And that's not true. It's like the memes of the little grumpy penguin that's crafting.
Yes.
Have you seen them?
Yeah.
Like, you can feel that way. And I tell my clients all the time, you can be a grumpy penguin that is crafting. And
I love that, Sam.
And the penguin is grumpy.
Yeah.
But it wants to craft.
Yeah.
And it's using glitter and it's pissed about it, but it's still doing it.
Yeah.
Like you get to live that way. And sometimes when like I'm taking care of my brother, that's how I feel. Yeah. So I think when you're thinking of, if you're in dynamics in your family where you're recognizing like you need more boundaries, you need to be a little more protective of yourself. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times the protection doesn't necessarily start at you cutting yourself off from things. The protection starts with you acknowledging your reality in the first place.
Yeah.
And the complexity of your reality. And that's not a bad thing. That's just like you finally honoring your life is not a binary, because nobody's is.
Yeah. I like that. I think that's a really, really good point. Because, I think also, I mean, it's so interesting too, because it like zooms out to the conversation about how hyper independent we all are and how we struggle to do favors for people anymore, and the lack of community, and how it is so easy now to not depend on anyone because you can hire out almost anything. You really don't need that many people in your life anymore. And I think that it is so interesting because families used to really need each other in a different way, or you needed friends, you needed someone to pick you up from the airport, you needed things of people, and we don't need things from people as much. I mean, the best example I have is like traveling, is when you travel with a friend or a family member, right? Like you do things together that you don't want to do something you want to do, but like in the like annoyance of it, you like learn about each other and you grow closer and all of that stuff. But we don't have that often because a lot of us just do peak experiences with each other where we meet at a nice restaurant and then we leave.
And go back to our like comfy little hovels where we don't get pushed or challenged. Yeah.
Like even the intimacy of like sitting in someone's car, going to someone's house.
Yeah.
This conversation is making you think, I could actually really use a therapist. I have great news for you. My practice, Therapy for Women Center, offers therapy in the Philadelphia area and in 43 states across the country. This is also where Sam works. So if you're interested in working with Sam or with me, we sometimes take a limited number of clients every year, and we would love to work with you. Or if we're not a fit, we have, like I said, licensed therapists across the country. Learn more at therapyforwomencenter.com. I don't know. I read a very interesting article the other day, this is sort of not exactly boundaries, that like even our pressure to like make our houses look perfect and stuff like that is so like new and non-intimate and kind of ridiculous that we have to like put on this show. And I was very much taught growing up, like it is not polite to have a like messy house. Like it is rude to the person coming to your house. So I like cannot handle very well I mean, I have a child now, so you've seen my house more dirty than I like believe it should be and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's lowered a bit. But I think that's really interesting too, because it does, I think, sometimes limit us of like, we have to be our best selves.
That is absolutely true, that we get so wrapped around the axle in our own head of assuming how we're perceived by other people, that it trips us up from being like connected and spending time with each other, because we're so worried about like the perfection element of it. But also I think there's intimidation of like, well, I don't want to bring it back to like the boundaries conversation. I think there's a lot of people that are like, well, I don't want to push their boundaries, or I don't want to overwhelm them. Or I don't want to, I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. And it's like, why are we assuming that just like existing is uncomfortable?
Yeah.
I don't think it is for that many people. For some, but I think for most people, it's not. And we actually just want people to show up messy because we're showing up messy.
Yeah. But then we never get to be authentic sort of with people, because we're not showing up messy. So then they're not showing up messy, and we're not giving each other permission.
But then you complimented my gallery wall and I felt better.
I do think I also told you, Sam, there is, and I know this is like probably a really annoying thing for like a married person who owns a house to say to someone else. But I tell you this all the time. Like, I romanticize living, like apartment living, and specifically the part of my life when I like had, like living with a friend and like the way you live with your sister, and like,
I know, it's a great time.
Freedom of that is also,
it's part of why I haven't bought a home yet.
Yeah.
I think where I'm seeing this the most, I actually think in like the cultural milieu right now.
Yeah.
I don't think boundary issues are as prominent in friendships as they are in families. I actually think in friendships we're almost like too flexible with each other sometimes.
Okay.
Like everything's okay, and like everything is like, well, I can't question you because you're my friend. But then in our families, it's become this like brutal, rigid, not everybody. But yeah, I
think there's more of a generational divide in families compared to a lot of us that are friends. We're all on the internet right now, and we're all like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to step on your boundaries, so I'm not going to say anything. Right. Where I think it's like a lot of times older generations are like, no, I did all of this stuff for my parents, so you're going to do this for me. And what is this newfound
independence?
Yeah. Or like,
back talk.
Yes.
Sassiness.
Or, right, it's like interpreted as rude or disrespectful.
Right.
Or things like that.
Right. Well, yeah. And I think the big issue that I've been hearing about more often than not is the fear of, and sometimes like realized fear of, the other person you're holding a boundary with not respecting the boundary.
Yes. And what do you do when that happens, which does happen?
Every day happens, right? It's happening right now while we record. There is a mother-in-law somewhere that is
probably
walking straight into someone's house without knocking. I think this ties into the no is a complete sentence, right?
Yes.
Because I think sometimes the part that's missed, and I know this might go against what I said in the beginning.
Yep.
So let's hold space for multitudes. I think if we're going to hone in on the family idea and say like, no is not a complete sentence. I do think if there is a family member that you've never held boundaries with before.
Yeah.
Things have just been free reign. There's been no pushback from either direction, right? You've just kind of been over in your corner stewing, and understandably so, given a lot of these situations, right? I do think there is a space where you could have more of a discussion.
Yeah.
And try to shine some light on why you're doing what you're doing. Now, I also understand there are a lot of family members that will not be receptive to that.
Right. I think the key of whether no is a complete sentence or not
Yes.
is whether someone will listen to you,
Mhm.
compromise back with you, because
Mhm.
it's not fair if you're compromising and trying to have a good faith discussion with them and explain yourself. If someone doesn't do that back, then yeah, you're going to have to meet them where they are, which is,
Right.
very firmly.
Yes. And I think it's kind of like you are allowed to have layers of defense to you as a person. Meaning, if you go to someone for the first time and you're talking about something being an issue, and even if they don't fully understand it, right? And maybe they have some questions, if they're receptive to it and they try, that's a sign that this is a person that you can work with.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe have some of that flexibility with them. If you bring that to them and they unleash on you, right?
Yep.
This might be a situation where there's going to be times where no is a complete sentence and it's followed with, I've already explained this to you.
Right. I think if you've explained it a bunch of times, then yes, no is a complete sentence.
Correct. If you've never talked about it before, or you brought it up once a year ago, there's a world where an explanation would be respectful.
Yeah.
And that is more so about you and aligning with your values than it is about saying like, well, I'm doing this for the other person.
Yeah.
Because I know I've had clients who have been really worried about the idea of like respect and not wanting to offend people and da da da. And I'm like, well, most people just want to be given the opportunity to be told what's going on.
Yeah.
Like most people just want to be in the loop. But if you have tried to let them in the loop and it's been a disaster, you get to decide to close that loop. But I think you maybe like the synopsis of what we're saying here is you have to be willing to give the people in your life the chance to show up for you the way you've wanted. And a lot of times that's going to look like testing boundaries, testing communication, testing some explanation, testing asking for accountability.
And we mean testing as in trying, not
Trying,
like purposely testing people.
No, we're not playing games. Like trying these things and actually like applying these skills.
Yeah.
Because that is data that informs which relationships are actually going to be the important relationships for you and which are relationships that you might need a little bit of distance from or some like extra safety in between there. But you can't know that if you just sit in your head all day.
Yeah.
And sometimes in our own heads, we hurt our own feelings. And I can say that confidently because I do that. I have hurt my own feelings many times.
Yep.
And it's been cleared up through a conversation.
You are really good at that, Sam. Whenever you are concerned about something being weird, you just call me.
I know. I have a lot of trauma with friendships, and so I need clarity and reassurance.
I do too, though. So it totally works for me.
But something that I've had to practice is trusting what is said back.
Yes.
And being like, okay, I asked, they said, that's done. And that's just like with everybody across the board. My whole life I've been convinced that people don't like me. But I think
because we both, we're super uncool.
We're such losers.
Just trying to fill the empty lunch tables of our house.
I just want somebody to sit with me. Oh, man. And that's why we're yapping.
Yep.
Into microphones now.
Exactly. Well, if you all have more boundaries questions, feel free to let us know. You can always reach out to us on Instagram, DM us. You can email us at podcast@therapyforwomencenter.com or join our Substack because we have lots of fun communication and chats. And we're really trying to build a community over there where we can connect with you all on, more deeply.
Yeah, it's great. We love it over there. So feel free, come join the club. And in the meantime, rate, review, subscribe, share. Anything you can do is super helpful, and it means the world to us because that is kind of like the yardstick we use for validation of if you like this or not.
Like us. No, but in seriousness, we're trying to grow and trying to make sure that one day we can get paid.
That one day
for all of the time we spend on the podcast.
We're going to end up somewhere. And so many of you have already said so many like wonderful, kind things. Yeah. If you can turn on notifications to know when the episodes drop. I've had a couple of people ask about that, so make sure to do that if you're not already doing it.
Oh, and a quick thing. Next week, we're going to only have one episode because of 4th of July. So just keep in mind there will only be a new episode on Tuesday.
Bye.